When I was in second grade, Bobby Finkel had a birthday party and invited everyone in our class but me. My mother assumed there'd been some sort of error, and she called Mrs. Finkel, who said that Bobby didn't like me and didn't want me at his party. And I graduated high school without ever going to the cafeteria, where I would have sat with the girls and been laughed at for doing so, or sat with the boys and been laughed at for being a boy who should be sitting with the girls. I survived that childhood through a mix of avoidance and endurance. But I didn't know then, and do know now, you need to take the traumas and make them part of who you've come to be, and you need to fold the worst events of your life into a narrative of triumph, evincing a better self in response to things that hurt.
I was ashamed of being gay. I would have done almost anything to stop being gay. I'd had a secret from my parents. I'd had a secret from the world. I'd experienced myself as being, a disappointment to everyone. And there's just a point at which I thought, I can't do it anymore. I have to open up and be straightforward and direct, say who I am. And my parents were not supportive and were not pleased about it at the time. She said, I wish this weren't true. This is really upsetting to me. You're giving up the most important thing in life, which is having children and having a family, to fulfill some short-term sexual need. 6 months after, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she died about 1.5 years after that. And I just remember just finding everything so hard. The idea even of keeping up a conversation with a good friend was more than I could do. Taking a shower, getting something to eat, it just all felt so overwhelming. And then I met John, and I knew fairly early on that this was going to be the great love of my life. It was really in meeting John that I began to feel not merely that I had accepted who I am, but that I was actually quite proud of who I am.
To the question I'm about to ask you, you will answer vigorously, we will. Will you, the families and friends of John and Andrew, support and uphold them in their civil partnership now and in the years to come? We will! Andrew and John, I now invite you to join hands and make your vows in the presence of God and His people.
I think for us, having grown up with the sense that this would never happen, and that having it actually happening felt quite miraculous. Everyone is coming together, and there is this vast structure of support that we have to count on. We have all these friends we can rely on and who will be part of our lives forever. I used to have a narrative of my life that it was kind of tragic. I was depressed, I was all of these other things. It's switching. I don't have a tragic life anymore. I felt in the moment of that wedding as though, oh, that's changed, and I can leave that completely behind.
I think we give each other confidence. I think that's very important because the world is very hard. And the world is hard on people. When you're with your husband or your wife, it's very important you support each other all the time.
John, I give you this ring.
John, I give you this ring
as a sign of our partnership.
as a sign of our partnership.
We straight people are married, but you gay people are just going to have a civil partnership. As soon as you start making the difference, there is an inequality built into that. When you use a different word, you're suggesting it is a different thing. And in terms of gay marriage versus straight marriage, when you say it is a different thing, you are saying it is a lesser thing.
You could be doing your homework. What do you have to do?
You're embarrassing me,
Oh, I'm
Daddy.
sorry.
You know, the life that I have now was unimaginable when I was growing up. The idea that I could be married to a husband, that when we get invited anywhere, we're always invited as a couple, that we could have children, and that everyone at the school uptown would be completely comfortable with us as the parents of our child. You know, the ways in which being gay has ceased to feel so aberrant and so different. That's been a fantastic, fantastic progress within the society. And I feel so lucky in it.
I always thought the outside was like this guy. Anyway, bye. Bye.
John was the one who said it. He said, George, do you ever wish that you had a mom and a dad like everyone else instead of having two dads? And George said, but if I had a mom and a dad, I wouldn't have one of you, and that would make me sad.
And then he asked me how old I would be, 48 years old, and I said, well, I would be about, 106 or something, if I'm still alive, right? Then he thought for a minute and he said, Papa, I'll be okay when you die. I'll still have Daddy.
He calls you Papa.
And Andrew Daddy, yeah.
And I remember my mother saying, the love for your children is like no other feeling in the world. And until you have children, you don't know what it feels like. Wish that she had gotten to see me settled with John. I wish she had met my children, whom she would have loved. I think she was a very, very good parent to my brother and to me. And is an inspiration for the way I am as a parent with my own children.
In October, it was my 50th birthday, and my family organized a party for me. And in the middle of it, my son said to my husband that he wanted to make a speech. And John said, George, you can't make a speech, you're 4. But George insisted and insisted, and finally John took him up to the microphone, and George said very loudly, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? And everyone turned around, startled. And George said, I'm glad it's Daddy's birthday. I'm glad we all get cake. And Daddy, if you were little, I'd be your friend. And I thought, thank you, I thought that I was indebted even to Bobby Finkel, because all those earlier experiences were what had propelled me to this moment. And I was finally unconditionally grateful for a life I'd once have done anything to change.
I mean, if you could travel back, what was that thing you want to tell her? Or if she was present?
Well, I would love to tell her that it all worked out. It's had its ups and downs, but it's all really turned out okay. That's what I would like to be able to tell her. And I also would like to be able to thank her. I feel like having children, I've come to an appreciation of how complicated it is to be a parent, and of all of the ways in which you get a bunch of things right and then some things wrong. And I think I was a little unforgiving when she was alive. I was angry that she didn't accept my being gay. I was angry about various other things. And I just feel like I'm not angry anymore. And I'd love to be able to tell her, you know what, I understand better now, and you did a pretty fantastic job.